All right, thank y'all for coming. It's the Ordinance Committee. Today's date is April 24th, 2024. The time now is 13 hours, and we're starting the meeting. Please silence your phone so we don't have any interruptions during the meeting. And we'll start with the invocation, and I guess I'll do that since we don't really have anyone set to do it. So if y'all don't mind, please stand. Lord, we want to thank you for bringing everyone here tonight. We want to thank you for all the graces that you extend to us. And please give us the knowledge and the wisdom to do the right things for the people of our parish. And please let everyone be tamed tonight as we go through these discussions. And make sure that everyone gets home safely. Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If anyone wishes to speak on any agenda item, you'll have an opportunity to do that. Please keep your comments to less than 3 minutes. We do have a rule on that. And Miss Sandy, would you, or Miss Raven, or Miss Caroline, could someone call a roll?
Yes. I'll do it in triplicate. That'd be fun.
Mr. Coates?
Here.
Miss Sandifer?
Here.
Mr. Shavers?
Here.
All right, looks like we have a quorum. All right. Old business, we have discussion of proposed ordinance 24-04, an ordinance to require studies and statistical data for developments requiring traffic impact studies and drainage impact studies with the submission of planning and zoning applications of 9 lots or more. Mr. Shavers, I believe this is yours.
Yeah, so after talking to Steve Irving and kind of getting some guidance from him, I think the way to go about this to ensure the health, safety, and welfare of the people and to ensure that the council is making sure that developments are being developed in a safe manner. I've got a proposed, I just kind of wrote down as Steve and I were talking. Again, this is up for discussion, and Steve can add any input to it that he thinks needs. And it'll read something like this: 10 lots or more must have an evacuation plan approved by the council before the preliminary plat can be issued. And that is something that will have to come before the council, I'm assuming at stage 3, and we'll tweak that out and get it wrote up before it goes to the council, and then reintroduce it at the next ordinance meeting and go that route. Does that?
I like that.
I mean, is the lots, do you think we should change the lot numbers? I mean, I'm open to anything on it. And it's just to make sure that the developers have an evacuation plan for when they develop these homes, that there's an evacuation route.
Actually, smart. I wouldn't have thought of. I never thought of that.
Either.
So I think that's a really good plan, because right now, I don't know what we would do in a situation like that, quite honestly.
So I'm open to lot numbers. I'm open to tweaking it to whatever you guys think. If you guys are okay with it, I'd like to get it formally wrote up as an ordinance, introduce it at the next ordinance committee, and then push it to the council.
I agree with you. I think that's a great idea. I think that anything could happen to jeopardize a safe route out. I almost think that any subdivision should probably have at least two entrances.
And especially down in your area, you know?
Yes.
Yep.
So I'm with you on
As
that.
it stands in mine, we're not going anywhere. We're stuck. We're not stuck. It's a long time to move that traffic out of there.
Yeah.
I think that's really good, actually. I really like that.
All right, so we're going to pull this off and do a little more work on it and bring it back to the next ordinance committee meeting?
Formal. Yep.
Okay. Does anyone wish to comment on any of this? Yes, sir. Please come up to the microphone and give your name, your address, and your comments.
Good evening, Jeff Diamond, At what stage of the process would this study be due? Typically, these are produced during stage 3 and made a part of conditional approval for stage 4.
Right, so
Is that
it would be at stage 3 that it would come here with the evacuation plan.
So we're talking about not changing the stage in which the study is due, but simply adding an evacuation
Correct.
plan component to
That's right.
traffic
Adding in a step.
study.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. And has a standard been developed for producing those plans?
We're going to work that out in between this ordinance meeting and the next.
Okay.
Yep. This is just something that we've kind of produced, but we'll put it formally on paper and have it more wrote up in a more formal manner than me just telling you what it is. And that way, that'll open the floor up for questions and public input. To not that you can't now, but just more public input on it. You know, again, I'm always going to be open-minded with stuff like this. I just think that we have to have an evacuation plan, and I think to ensure the health, safety, and welfare of the people, I think the council really should have a say in that. Yep.
Do you think it should come at a different stage? Do you have any input to give there?
I agree with the stage. I think this is the right point in the process to do it. I just wanted to make sure I was clear on that, and also to make sure I was clear on what was being added to it.
Do you have a suggestion? Any suggestion maybe on the lot numbers or?
In truth, most of what I do deals with large subdivisions with improvements, and so certainly all of those are going to fit into the 10 lots or more that you set.
Okay.
I'm kind of shooting from the hip. I would want to know how the council felt and how the planning staff and how the engineering staff felt. The liability of such studies, which are generally fairly complex and expensive, relatively small developments. When you look at 10 lots or 12 lots or 15, we're, for lack of a better term, we're kind of in a gray area about whether this is a few houses on the side of the road or whether this is an honest to God development.
Right.
But I don't think it's at all unreasonable to have a plan for, even if it's just a house on the side of the highway.
Sure.
How is emergency staff going to get in, and how are people that live there going to get out?
Right.
I don't think that's far-fetched at all.
Okay.
Well, Chapter 125 would be amended to include, or some technical document would be amended to include the standards by which the evacuation plan components of these two studies would be developed and
Yes.
used.
And more of that will come out in the next meeting. I expect to be a lot of questions for it. And I'm open to them, and I'm open to any suggestions, like I've said before. But yes, ultimately yes.
Would that standard be developed before the ordinance was adopted and the requirement put in place?
Ask that question again.
I would think it'd be cumbersome for everybody to have a requirement for an evacuation plan to be part of the submittal, but no standard exists for producing or evaluating the plan, approving it, so that there would be a gap where nothing could be approved because the thing that needed to be approved as part of it hadn't yet been developed. Does that make sense?
Kind of. Morgan, do you?
He's asking if you're gonna.
Yes, I would like to. Yeah.
Well, I think we would have to define it before we can,
Well, that's what exactly what I'm talking about.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's got to be defined, but it is state highways. I mean, we're all state highway. There's got to be an evacuation plan. We're going to have to do research there and figure that out, but we've got to define it before we can pass it.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. That's exactly what I mean.
Okay.
That all makes sense to me.
Thank you. I appreciate it. What did you say your name was?
Jeff Diamond.
Jeff Diamond. Okay.
Diamond.
Diamond.
All right, thank you for your comments, sir. New business, discussion of Ordinance number 24013, section 125-52 through 125-68 of the Ordinance Committee to discuss and make changes to those ordinances, excuse me, and any plats in the process of being approved at this time would have to come before the council until this ordinance is finalized. This is something that has kind of slipped through the cracks on us, and after taking a little closer look at it, we're probably going to pull this off, and we're going to go through it a little closer before we bring it up. So we'll probably bring this up also at the next ordinance meeting because of some new developments that we ran across. And then, yeah. All right, and then we have a discussion of building line setbacks that are adjacent to future highway growth corridors. Mr. Gerald Burns is going to give us a little presentation on this.
Pass this out the outfit. One is in full, and then the other one is proposed changes.
Oh, okay, I see.
I think I.
Top one is, tell me again. The top one is what?
Top one is like
Raven.
the ordinance in full
Okay.
with everything, and that's changes proposed. Y'all had talked about adding number 2 a while back, but
This is the new one. So this is the changes. And this is the original.
This is what we're at.
Got it.
Yeah.
That's your original? Those are changes.
Gerald Burns. I'm the chairman of the Master Plan Review Committee for Livingston Parish. Last Ordinance Committee meeting, we came before you, and what we had at that time was in red. It was item number 2 was to include all Louisiana state highways in Livingston Parish controlled by Louisiana Department of Transportation and Development. And since then, Ms. Aaron had asked us to look at Jubin Road south of I-12 because of possibly some businesses locating down there. So we went and measured some pylons south of I-12, and we come up with 80 feet. And that's what it was north of I-12 when DOTD bought the right-of-way. And it was 80 foot, and they bought 30 and 30 on each side to make 140. We measured Walker South. We tried finding something on Peace Highway south of I-12 to Port Vincent, and there is no concrete pylons. We couldn't find any anywhere. But we measured some from light pole to light pole, which is generally the DOTD right-of-way, because the power companies cannot put poles in DOTD right-of-way. They can put it just outside, but they can't put it in it. So we come up with some conflicting things. It's 70 foot. I don't know if it's 70 or 60 because you don't have the pylons to see. But anyway, so we went back to the drawing board, and this item here that Ms. Sandy gave you is in the middle of the page, item number 2, the building line setbacks that are on Louisiana Department of Transportation Development highways on 80 feet wide rights-of-way shall be as follows. So if you go from 100 back down to 80, you have to add 20 feet on each, and then 10 on each side. So A is 30 feet on side yard. B is 30 feet on my side yard twice. It's rear. One of them should be rear, okay? We'll correct that. Then C is 50 foot in the front building line. So buildings that, residences and commercial establishments that face the highway, it would be the front building line. So that's what we come up with. Item number 3, A lot of other highways might not be 80, might not be 100, it might be 70. I consulted a local engineering firm in Livingston Parish, and they said they have the ability to go on DOTD websites and look at their databases and tell them how wide a state road is anywhere in the parish. So we wrote item number 3 as a kind of a catch-all for any other road width. Now, y'all can leave this in or take it out, but that addresses anything else besides 80 and 100. So, what we'd like to do is incorporate this back into our original ordinance that addresses Florida Boulevard as a 100-foot right-of-way. Now, we didn't say that Florida Boulevard is a 100-foot right-of-way, because that's the only one we've done. So, but it is 100. So we'd like to go back and then say 100-foot right-of-ways, you would do the building line setback 20, 20, and 40. Got me?
I'm with you.
Anyway, we'd like to go back and incorporate this into the original ordinance and not have 2 ordinances. With your permission, we'd like to do that, okay? If you allow us to do that. So when we come back, it'll be 1 ordinance that you consider, not 2. It's kind of confusing to have 2 ordinances like this.
Yeah.
So let us go back and redo this a little bit, one more time, and bring it back to you one more time. And we'll have an opportunity to bring this before the Master Plan Committee on the 15th, get their concurrence with it, and see if they have any problems with it. So we'll give it to them in advance to study and give us some input. So if y'all would allow us to do that.
You want us to pull it tonight? You want us to pull it?
Well, not pull it, but yeah, pull it. And let's bring it back on the next ordinance. When is your next ordinance committee meeting?
Yeah.
Monday, when?
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Tuesday, yeah.
That's okay.
Before.
We'll have it right for you, and then we'll bring it to them,
All right.
for concurrence with us. Is that okay? We'd bring it back.
Sounds great.
Kind of put both of them together. Now, this original ordinance will be a little bit longer, but all of it will be on 1 ordinance.
Yes, sir.
Okay?
Thank you, Mr. Burns.
All right,
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you.
How y'all doing today? Glad to
Same
be
as you
here.
guys.
I do want to caution you, I hadn't had a chance to talk to Mr. Gerald and them, on some of the state right-of-ways at the, where they connect, so like between districts or between areas, at the, mostly at the channels, they have, some of them have 150-foot right-of-ways, so when they were building those roads, they didn't know exactly where they would align at, so they bought more right-of-way. So just, I would just caution y'all to have some kind of language, because there may be a 100-foot right-of-way now through there on the road, but when it gets to a channel, they may be a 150-foot right-of-way there, and if your building line says from property line, so just, I would just caution, try to come up with some kind of language for those specific areas that would be wider. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and you, Mr. Burns, you stated that there is a website that DOTD has where we can see all of these setbacks online.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. Okay?
Yeah. I heard it, I said, I want to make sure I make that note.
According
Thank
to
you.
one of the local engineers I talked to, they said they can go to DOTD website and look at their database, and they can tell them any state road, anywhere in this parish, and tell you how wide the right-of-way is. They can do that.
Can we access that, or do you have to be DOTD?
It's possible.
They would have a login. I can request permission for that login.
Can you do that, please?
Can we do that? Can the parish do that?
I mean, I think Public Works can do it. I don't know that.
They can do it too. I seen something on the Planning Commission agenda somewhere that a road was meandering from 165 to 200 and something, according to GIS maps. I wouldn't go to GIS maps. I would go strictly to the database of the DOTD. That's where their accurate information is at. So I don't know how they got to that, but anyway, I will talk to Mr. Robert and see what he's talking about and coming up.
Okay, I do think this, thank you for bringing this up and doing everything that you've done. This is something that's really important to me. I've got commercial coming down. I'm concerned about all of that coming down and it costing us more money the longer we go, the more money it's going to cost with.
It's the taxpayers that buy the buildings and reconfigure buildings. So if we can stop all this stuff ahead of time, we can save taxpayers money. Instead of building buildings and reconfiguring buildings, we can put that on the road itself. So you get a little bit more road, you say.
Yeah.
So yeah, well, this is being proactive. This is looking forward. This is planning for the future. Long after I'm gone, we'll have some rules in place to protect the young people.
Thank you so much.
Thanks again, Mr. Burns. Thank you, Mr. Dugas, for your input. All right, and that concludes all the business on the agenda, so.
Ricky, you had something or no?
Oh, Ricky. Oh, I'm sorry, Ricky.
Okay.
Ms. Goff?
Ricky Goff, 32774 Kirbywood Drive, Walker, Louisiana. The ordinance that we had discussed, and Ms. Carolina has a kind of a rough draft of it. Would you like to read that? No? But you will anyway, right?
Yeah, we're getting it together.
Okay. So basically what we're looking at doing is the waivers that we continue to have to do and continue to have to do. It's trying to come up with some kind of a, like, realistic benchmark that we can start weeding some of them out. We're still going to have some of them coming until we really understand exactly what we can do with this. So what we've come up with so far, and after talking to the planning department, things of that nature, is basically a anything from 1990 back that states that is a named subdivision. A lot of those properties is what's happening now. They're starting to subdivide them because they're large pieces of property. It was family property. It was divided in like 3 or 4 pieces. It's 5 acres, 7 acres, 10, whatever. But because it states a named subdivision, they have to come up and get the waiver. And they can't do anything until we get that done. So what we've looked at right now is to keep some control and handle on it, on what we feel needs to come to the council, and some that's just pretty much a, okay, move on. We're looking at 1990 back, anything from 1990 back that is over 2 acres, and I think is that worded over 2 acres after subdivided? So basically what we wanted to do is we wanted to make sure that,
Less, they'll need to come get a waiver.
right. We wanted to make sure that if it's a large tract of property, that it was just family property and they're trying to subdivide it for their family again, they can't do it without coming to get the waiver. So we want to make sure that they have that ability. But then at the same time, if it's 2 acres or below, we want to see it and be able to say yes or no on the waiver, because we don't know for sure where it's at. It's a named subdivision, so it's in somewhat of a subdivision somewhere. And if it's under 2 acres, it might be ½ an acre. Yeah, it might be 1 acre, it might be 3/4 of an acre. And we may or may not want to allow that to move forward. So I think we have control, a little bit of control, and they come in front of us and we can evaluate those individually, and it'll reduce some of the waivers that we're having to just arbitrarily just give, because it's, for example, if somebody comes in there and they got 3 acres of property and it's in a named subdivision because that's the way it was. They come off of a 50-acre tract and they got 3 acres as a family member, and now I want to give an acre to each one of my siblings. They can't do that without getting a bypass. So because it's over 2 acres, the Planning Commission would be able to just say, okay, let's do that. They still have to meet all the other guidelines for subdividing. So
I have a question. So just tell me how this scenario would marry with mine. So I had a constituent of mine. She called me needing a waiver. She's living in a FEMA camper, and and I think it was like 3 or 4, maybe 5 acres, and they needed to subdivide so that the lady living in the FEMA trailer could build her a house on the property, on the family property. So how would that marry in with this?
She would never see this council because it's over 2 acres. If she walks in the door, the first thing they're going to ask is where it's at is a named subdivision. Second thing they're going to ask, if it is a named subdivision, how many acres are you trying to subdivide? Because that particular one is 5 acres, it's over 2 acres.
Yeah.
Then the planning commission can go ahead and work with her, get her through all the other processes, and she can move on. Now, if she walks in there and she's got 1 3/4 acres, then she's got to come back to us she's got to come back to get the waiver, even because it's in a named subdivision. For example, if you go in there and there's a subdivision that's a named subdivision that was put up 10 years ago, 2013, and they want to subdivide, and it's 1.5 acre lot, and they want to make it 3 lots for some reason and put 3 mobile homes on it or whatever it is, then we would have at that point we would have the ability to say, we can't give you the waiver. And I think that's kind of the purpose. I think that was kind of the purpose of this thing. It's a named subdivision. So we're just going to take it a little bit at a time. There's a possibility that we could just take the language out because they have density and everything else. But before we do that, till these fine gentlemen here get everything that we know of is right, I'd rather not mess with that. Let them still go through all the density issues that they got to handle, and then anything above 2 acres, you can, the planning department will handle it. But if it gets below 2 acres, because we don't know how many times they're going to try to divide it. They may try to take that 2 acres and divide it into 7, 6.
That was my
3.
next question. Why would we do less than 2 acres to come before the council? But that makes sense.
Yeah, and there's so many things that play into that. It's where it's located at. Where is that 2 acres? Because it's a named subdivision. Most of these that we have been doing is just family-owned property.
That's right.
That's why we're going to go with, I think it's 90 or 95? 1990 back, because it was just an ordinance that was put in place that every named subdivision then had to.
And that's what I was going to clarify. So it's 1990, and if it was after 1990, they would have to come back and get a waiver. So
No matter what.
It's 1990 and 2 acres.
I do have a question about 1990.
Yeah.
I'm curious. Give me a history lesson. Why 1990?
We don't really know exactly where it's at. So there's a lot of questions about where this ordinance actually came into play and what year it came into play as a named subdivision. Well, then even though it's there, you still had named subdivisions all through there. So we just kind of took 1990 by looking at the ones that we have gotten done or had to have done and where they fall and the acreages that they are. And we said a safe zone would be 1990 and back. Now, anything that's 1990 forward, they got to come to us and get a waiver. And then we'll tweak this again by changing that, either the acreage or changing the year, once we get a better understanding and these gentlemen have done what they need to do. We can tweak it again. But
We keep getting still getting a bunch of waivers, and we're noticing that, okay, it's 1995, all these were being built. We can change the year to 1995 back.
Well, here's why I'm asking. I understand about the subdividing of land 40 years ago.
right.
So when it comes before me, it's usually prior to 1980.
Yeah.
And so that time frame from 80 to 90, I don't know. I don't know what happened.
We've
in that
had
time frame.
we've had some other ones, but that year can change if y'all do some checking and feel that needs to move back from 1990. I mean, if it's 1980, it depends on what 1980 it is. So that's why we just took 1990, because a lot of them were in the 80s
Okay.
that we've done waivers. So it's 1990 and back.
I do have a named subdivision that's, I want to say it's 1975, and they have never subdivided land, and somebody wanted to subdivide, and I was like, it's a subdivision, it's just a large lot subdivision, and they wanted to cut it up into, I think it was 2 half-acre, 1 acre into, might have been 3, subdivided it into 3. It was a little bit more than an acre, and I was like, but it was anyway, the timeline, it really is that old of a subdivision that has never been subdivided before.
And that's what happens if you think about this parish in 1975 or think about this parish in 1980. 1980, I'm going to say that I graduated in 82. In Walker, the only thing that was in Walker on around the interstate was the Phoenix station. We've changed a lot in that time frame. So most of this property was family-owned property, and it wasn't just an acre or 2 acres. Most of it was like 25, 50, or 100, or even more. So they break it out and they fix it to where their family can go on it or what have you. And now those family members or those grandkids with the grandkids, it's breaking it up a little bit more. So that's why we picked 2 acres and down. You still got to come to us. We need to physically look at it and see what's going on. 2 acres and up from 1990 back,
I like it.
It's fine. And again, the key here is the density rules and things of that nature, and they can expand on it, protects the density and all that stuff. They still got to comply with. So they're not going to take 2.5 acres and divide it up into 10 lots, because it's not going to meet the other guidelines.
So I have a question about that.
This is something that's going to just got to meet all the other guidelines, but they can't get off of the start line until they get that waiver done. So we're just trying to help them.
Is it a DHH requirement that you can take a mobile home down to a half acre? You can't go below a half acre for a mobile home. Is that
I don't know for sure. I think that the DHH has a minimum standard
of a half acre,
but we don't have to be held to that minimum standard. We can set our standard what we want, but DHH I think has a minimum standard that that the individual has to meet.
And I think it's a half acre for a mobile home.
It may be. A lot of them go by square footage. I want to say the city of Walker has like a 16,000
square feet
or 1,200 square foot. And then like the property has to meet a certain amount of square footage. So that way, it's not a matter of it's shaped and they tweak it. So and it seemed to work over there for them. So some of that is what's going to work out in this whole process. We got to work all those little kinks out. All I'm trying to do is just prevent some of these people that have been here forever and have family-owned property, and they're just trying to help, subdivide it out. It might even be because of a secession. It might be something like that a grandparent or parent, has passed away, and now they want to subdivide it out, give the kids through the secession property, and first thing they got to do, can't do nothing. Got to go get your waiver. I got one that's going to be on the agenda. They got to get the waiver. So then they got to wait for our council to meet. We got to go and do it. And it's really just a gavel thing and go. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to take the ones that are gavel and go, I call it,
I understand,
and just give them the ability to do it over there. Anything that's under the 2 acres, they still got to come here. And density falls no matter what. So if they walk in there, like the one you're referring to, then they would be able to start their process. And they wouldn't have to come to you and come to the council and go through all of that, whether they would like to stand up here or not. You know what I'm saying? They wouldn't have to go through all that. So they could go ahead and get them moving forward. And then they have to still meet the density of whatever they're dividing.
I do have one more question. Have you talked with Mr. Fournier about this at all? And I'm asking because, and I'll explain this to the public too, one of the reasons we're holding back a little bit from these ordinances is because he's working on them, and we're going to unplug and plug back in. So there is a little lag in the system right now, and that's why I'm asking. I don't know if he's looked at that. Like, what is he saying?
We're not changing anything. It's just something that comes to the council and gets approval and keeps moving on. We're trying to just save the constituents as well as the planning department and up here. It's just a formality that they got to go through because they got plenty enough acreage. They meet all the densities. They meet everything that's in there except their name subdivision from 1975. And you can't stop. You can't do nothing. Hold up right there. Stop. You got to go to your council member. You got to get on the agenda. They got to give the approval, come back to us. We're going to get started. And it's just, so instead of just turning that loose wide open and just doing away with it, and saying that it doesn't have to be a named subdivision, even though they still have to meet density. I'm like, let's just do away with it. But on the cautious side, with everything we got going on, we come up with, okay, let's just look at it and move it down to 1990 and 2 acres and above, that they have the ability to give it their blessing. And then, again, we would tweak it again. But if y'all would, after looking at it, if y'all want to just do away with it completely, the name subdivision part, and require them to just go through all the density and all that stuff, I think you're still good. You're still good.
Okay. And you're going, Caroline, can you research the timeline, 1980 to 1990?
Yep. So if everybody's is comfortable with that, we're going to move forward with it like y'all were doing before with that, and just get something hard written down. It still can be tweaked and changed. And then we'll dive into the fact, if we just do away with it completely, this is where we're at.
Right.
You know, and take, if somebody comes in there with a named subdivision, and if it's a half acre, 1 acre, 1 1/4, 3/4, whatever, where's their guidelines? And if we're protected enough with that, we may just say, hey, let's just take it out. But if we do that, I'm going to ask Miss Dee Dee them to be standing right here with me. Any other questions?
Nope. Appreciate it, Mr. Goff.
The other one that I'm going to be bringing up is going to be the 40-foot right-of-way, moving it back to 60 foot. I know we've talked about that multiple times, but I'm going to get with Caroline. We're going to put it on the next agenda, and it's going to be in a format basically just introduced, because we're going to just change the number from 40 to 60.
I'm behind you on that one.
Okay.
I know, yes, thank you for doing that.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Goff.
Thank you.
Any other business out there?
Kind of in line with what Ricky's talking about, I'm the
Can you give your name, sir?
Robert Dugas, Charlie Watts Road, that's where I live, basically. So I'm the chairman of the Utility Coordinating Committee that meets each month. And some of the discussion we've had the last few months about is the servitude right-of-ways, the ones that have the all access, I call it, whatever. And then the problem is, because we're not defining what goes in that 60 foot and where it goes, first come, first serve. So a 40 foot, think a 40 foot or 60 foot servitude, if the power company's the first one to get there, they can put their poles right down the middle of that 60 foot. So then where do you put a road? You know, so we're coming up with some language because I want that whole group,
Okay.
we're talking about all the drainage districts, all the municipalities, Cox, AT&T, Energy, Demco, all of those people come to the meeting. And so we're going to come as a group and request it. Hopefully I can talk somebody that has a CAD person to draw me something out, but we want to show you because we actually talked about it today. I don't know that y'all understand, if you have a 40-foot servitude, everything that has to go in that servitude. Because when you put it all in there, something's got to be under something else.
Right.
And most of the time it goes under the road. So we'll be coming back from the utilities. We'll be coming and we would like y'all to take our recommendation, and maybe that be the standard. And that would be on all properties. So that's some of the issue now, is a commercial piece of property is one parcel. Okay, there is no right-of-ways or servitudes. So then they go build this building. Well, then they need AT&T to come in. Well, then they got to go figure out how they're going to come in. So if we can get some of that work done on the front end, like have it drawn on the plat to say, here's where the utility servitude is. Or I've got one right now, me and Mr. Joe's been dealing with. There's a 60 foot there, but the road kind of the dirt road snakes through there. So there was no defined area for where the road was going to be. So that's some of the stuff, the language we would like put in, in any piece of property. So that means if you're subdividing 4 lots, if there's going to be a little alleyway, we want defined what's right away for roads and what's right away for utilities. And it just makes life easier for everybody after that. But we'll be bringing something to the Ordinance Committee later on. I think we meet the third Wednesday of each month at 9 o'clock. If y'all want to come, y'all welcome to attend. And kind of hear what we're talking about. So, but we'll be bringing that to the Ordinance Committee at a later date.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Dugas.
Can you combine with him?
That's what I'm going to talk to him about.
Anyone else? All right, then I guess this meeting's adjourned. Any objections? Any councilman comments?
I don't think so, no.
All right, we're adjourned.